Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. If we haven't met before, my name is Sam Oshay. I am the founder and CEO of Recurrency. I am joined here by Hunter Hancock, who is our lead solutions engineer. And today we're going to be talking about 3 tips to automate your ERP system. Now, before we get too much into the weeds of Prophet 21, the theme today, we're using Prophet 21 just as an example, where all of you have different ERP systems, and the tips we're talking about are pretty generalizable across all the different types of systems that distributors typically use. We're just using Prophet 21 as one example of one of the most popular systems. Now, before we get too much into it, to give you a quick introduction on what Recurrency is and what we do, we are an automation and optimization layer for legacy ERP systems, Prophet 21 included. Now, in doing that work, we go and we talk to customers all around the country. And at a recent visit, I heard this quote from one of our customers talking about one of their customers. And they said that their end customer, that if they saw 2 contractor trucks in the parking lot, that their customers, they don't even stop by, they'll just keep driving down the road to a competitor because they know they're not going to get in and out in less than half an hour. Now, overall, we see this idea of slow processes hurting the customer experience as relatively common within the distribution ecosystem. A lot of the computer systems for their mission critical activities actually do introduce a lot of overhead that our goal is to help streamline and automate away. And so today we're going to be talking about tips to improve ERP performance so that your end customers aren't waiting 30 minutes, maybe they're waiting 5 minutes. Overall, talking about why ERP automation matters, and then ultimately taking questions from you all about what you're interested in and any thoughts you have on the presentation we'll be making. And so, a question we often get about automation, about recurrency, about our software system and many of the other software systems that are available on the market is, are we trying to, replace the ERP system? And the answer is certainly not. There's a famous case study of Hershey trying to partially replace their SAP system. And unfortunately, they did this right before the holiday crunch of Halloween and Christmas. And because of this, they were unable to process hundreds of millions of dollars worth of orders that they had in stock, but they just literally could not deal with the processes. They didn't plan for that demand. And so the goal of Recurrency, we are an automation layer that sort of slides right on top of your existing ERP. If we look at this slide here, without automation, you just interface directly with your ERP system. But with Recurrency, we just sort of slide right on top and create a fast, easy, beautiful interface for you to use that then interfaces with your ERP on your behalf. And from here, I think Hunter,
yes,
take it away.
Thank you so much for that intro, Sam. That's exactly right. I want to really talk about 2 things here today. And that's, first off, Recurrency is an extension of your current ERP system, like Sam was just saying. You can see that it doesn't replace, it just sits here as an additional layer. And I think it's easy to say that, but it's hard to understand what that really means in practice. And so to bring that a little bit closer to home and to bring that into a series of tips that can be very directly applicable to you and your business, let's talk about a real world use case. Let's say that you're a sales rep and you're sitting there at your desk and you get a call from a customer. They made an order last week and they want a quote on reordering those same items. In order to do that, there are a couple of processes that we have to go through in our current ERP system. We have to search for that customer and that past order from that customer. We have to recreate their past order as a quote, adjusting prices and quantities to whatever their new need is. And we have to save that and make sure that we can get a PDF to send over to the customer and make sure that that gets approved and processed on our end of things. So a few major steps, and we're going to be talking about each one of them today. To start, let's look at search. And to begin with, I'm going to show you a quick example of what this process looks like in P21. And again, this applies to all sorts of reference systems, but for the time being, we're going to talk about P21. The first thing you'll see is that if you haven't seen this screen before, it's very complicated. It requires that you have prior knowledge of which buttons to click on, which sections to go to, and exactly what you need to do in order to achieve your goal. This makes it really hard for new reps to get started on P21. And it means that even though this is the core source of all of your business data, even just searching for something can be a slow process without prior knowledge. So that brings us to our first tip. Save time with search automation by ditching your cheat sheets. Instead of requiring reps to have this prior knowledge, or in some cases even have a cheat sheet at their desk of common customers that they can look up, you can search in milliseconds. Using Recurrency, you get typo-tolerant instant search, which means you don't have to spell something correctly. You don't have to remember exactly where the period or the colon is in the name of that customer. You can just type it out and get what you want straight away. And you can do that from your computer or from any mobile device or tablet you have, so that if you're an outside sales rep, you can do inventory lookups and make quotes for customers on the go. Let's take a look at what that actually looks like. This is a live demo of Recurrency. You can see that you type through and your results automatically come up in this global search bar. You can access this from anywhere in Recurrency, and it's pulling data directly from your P21 or other source ERP. And it loads that information instantly through this intuitive interface and a search bar that is accessible anywhere. And as you can see in the bottom left of the screen, you don't have to spell everything correctly either. If you spell super value as superveil, it still comes up, because at the end of the day, this is the customer that is closest to what you're looking for. And we're trying to make your job easier, particularly while you're on the phone holding a conversation with the customer. So now that we've pulled up this search result, let's actually make a quote from it. In P21, here's what that process looks like. We've opened the order entry screen. We type in the customer that we are interested in looking for, which we can do by double clicking on this customer ID box. And then once we've found the customer, we still have to go to click to another tab in order to go find the information of their sales history. So we found the customer, we're gonna click over to the customer sales history tab in order to see what they purchased last week. To start, it's not obvious what order here was done most recently. They're not sorted in a meaningful way. And so if we click on order date, oh, that's data from 2014. So we have to click on it again to actually see their most recent order. And this really ends up being the primary frustration with these systems. They have very good data, but it's not often organized in the way that you might expect, and it requires a lot of clicks in order to get it. So now we've found the items that we want, and in this case, it's these top two that are part of our order, even though it's a little bit hard to tell that they're separate from the ones below it. You can tell based on order date. Now we're going to go over to the bottom, and we have to manually rekey this order. We can either search for the items by double clicking, or if we know the IDs like we do at the top, we can type those in manually in order to recreate this order. Once you've typed that in, press enter. Takes a second to load in the pricing information and the quantity available. Now we can tell the customer, decide what quantity we want, type that in, get that ordered. And this gets time consuming when you have orders with a lot of line items. In this case, we're just going to be doing a 2-line quote, but for something like a 5, 10, 15 line quote, this gets really painful really quickly because you have to repopulate all of this information every time. Let's look at how we can do that better and save time by automating it. And in this case, we've calculated that you can save on average 3 to 5 hours per sales rep per week through processes like this. This comes from a number of small improvements, like searching inventory 185 times faster than you can in your source system, and auto-generating new line items so that rather than manually rekeying that order, those line items are there the moment that you press go. Finally, making this available anytime and anywhere saves you time of going through other people. You can just make a quote right there on your tablet in front of the customer, rather than going back to your truck, calling your CSR, and manually relaying all of that information, which introduces huge rooms for error and delays in your process. So let's do this in Recurrency. Once again, we search for the order in question, and you notice straight away in the top right here, we can actually see a copy as button. So we've got all this information on the order. We've got the same line items that we just saw in P21, and we are going to go to the top right to copy this as a new quote. And this will automatically pre-fill this in our new quoting interface. So it's easy to use, and it automatically fills all of those fields. What it also means is we don't have to go through and edit these header fields. Everything is as it was the last time it shipped, confirm that with the customer, and press next. Now we can see in the line item screen, all our items are here. The prices have automatically updated based on the changes to the cost that may have occurred in the last week. And this supports pricing contracts, pricing libraries, many different ways of doing pricing. We're going to update the quantities based on, again, what is available and what the customer is interested in. And it's really, really easy to do this versus rekeying the entire order because everything is just there. Finally, what we can do is confirm we're good with everything. You can see actually on the sidebar, we even have the opportunity to upsell the customer on new things that we think they might also be interested in adding to the reorder. More on that in a second. But all we have to do once we're done with this is scroll down and hit next. And that will take us to our review screen where we can confirm everything looks good. Again, confirm with the customer. And once we hit the send to ERP button at the bottom, it sends directly to P21. Same thing as if we created it there. And so once again, this does not replace P21, but it speeds up your processes so that all your core business data that lives there, you can update it faster, you can work with it more easily, and it really gives you the best of both worlds. So let me talk about that last point again. Upsellings and recommendation. When you are first joining a business and you as a new sales rep don't necessarily have the context of the industry or your particular use cases, it's really hard to know what you can upsell. It's really hard to know when you're on the phone with a customer what kinds of recommendations they might take. In some sense, you're better off just asking, would you like fries with that? They might take you up on it. But within Recurrency,
that's a horrible joke. Sorry to say, Hunter.
An engineer joke. But yes, so you need all this business context in order to make these decisions and make these recommendations. And so our third automation tip is to automate upsells and recommendations with artificial intelligence. And you can do that because adding these line items will boost revenue. And the way we do that in Recurrency is with Amazon-like recommendations. So if you've ever bought something on Amazon and you see at the bottom, customers like you also bought this, or customers who bought this item also bought this, we do that exactly. And so as your customer is going through and making a quote and buying something from you, it's very easy for you to almost read their mind and say, hey, are you also running out of this? Or would you also want to buy this, which pairs well with this other item? This also gives you an opportunity to push slow moving stock. Let's say you have dead stock in the warehouse that really has been sitting there a long time. We can very quickly give you a list of customers who you can go call and ask if they are interested, because their buying patterns fit the buying patterns of customers who buy it. And all of this is important for building these long-term relationships and making sure that you are converting your customers from one-time customers to ongoing, consistent reordering customers. This is what that screen looks like. You can see we have the sidebar there on the top right that shows you exactly the items that are being recommended. And it's hard to tell because it's small, but we even tell you why we're recommending them, whether that means that they use it at a consistent rate and they're about to run out, or this item usually sells around this season, or this customer usually buys this every month or every week. We give you that rationale. And this allows you to increase the line items per order. It allows you to move stock faster. It allows you to convert these one-time orders and first-time orders into ongoing subscriptions. And at the end of the day, drive more revenue. To recap, let's do a side-by-side comparison of the full process in P21 without Recurrency and in P21 with Recurrency. And while this is playing, I'm going to hand it over to Sam to tell you all a story.
Awesome. Thank you, Hunter. Well, as we see, the videos are still going on. And right at second 18, we finish in Recurrency. And again, this is not a P21 specific product. No matter which ERP you're running, Recurrency has applications. And many of the same things we talked about optimizing search, about optimizing commonly used workflows, about automating upsells and opportunities. These are common to every ERP ecosystem, and Prophet 21 is just an example of one of the most popular. Now, I spent many years actually working in the industry before I started Recurrency. I grew up in it, and I spent many years working in industrial distribution, in IT, in purchasing, across every job role. And really, that experience inspired me to start Recurrency because I saw, A, how central these ERP systems are to businesses, but also how much value can be added by bringing great technology to distribution and wholesale. And so as you see in the traditional ERP, we're still running the workflow. It just finished. So it lasted about a minute longer, long enough for me to wax poetic about my resume. And if you imagine this 1 minute, it's one slide in one presentation, but 1 minute, if you do this workflow 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, 1 million invoices a year, perhaps, The minutes really add up to hours and days and payroll dollars. And so the vision for Recurrency is we want to be an all-in-one automation and optimization engine for your ERP system. This is a system tailor-made for distributors, tailor-made for wholesalers to integrate with their existing ERP systems and add value above and beyond what's already there. We want to make your workflows easier. We want to make your data more easy to interpret. And we want to help you run your business and do the work you're already doing in the most seamless, easy, and error-free way possible. Another way of thinking about our goal for Recurrency is we want to give your ERP superpowers. When it comes to our upselling recommendations or reorder recommendations, we want to help your salespeople read the customer's mind and see the future to make sure that you're making the most out of every customer interaction and really capturing every dollar of revenue that you possibly can. Automation as a concept, it affects nearly every KPI, top line, bottom line, customer service of almost every department in distribution. When it comes to the sales features that we talked about, whether it's quote or order or search, these help increase the customer satisfaction. Going back to the slide at the top of the webinar about our one customer who said that they were losing customers simply because people would go to their storefronts, to their front counter, and it would take 15, 30 minutes to check them out. Having fast and easy workflows helps keep the customer happy, as all of us now have access to incredible technology in our personal lives. We can go home and use Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, these extraordinarily well-built pieces of consumer software. Buyers are now starting to expect that from their vendors when it comes to the vendors' to the vendors' IT stacks. And the goal of Recurrency is to help give you that in a nice, easy package. Second, many of our features are built about affecting sales and revenue KPIs. Upselling recommendations directly add line items to every order, help you expand your average order value. Our reorder recommendations, which we talked about briefly, these help retain revenue year over year and making sure that the money that you spend to acquire a customer is not wasted. Of course, automation saves you money because time is money, and we save you time on average about 3 to 5 hours per user per week. When it comes to your employees, everyone knows that labor is really hard to come by right now. And so having an easy system that's very simple to learn, easy to get spun up on, it will help improve your employee onboarding and employee retention. And then ultimately, having fast, amazing pieces of software is a competitive advantage. All of us feel the pressure of Amazon. All of us feel the pressure of e-commerce. And if we don't invest in our IT stacks and start building a better and better customer experience and business process, eventually things will come to a tipping point. And so investing in IT is one of the most important things that a business can do to stay ahead of competition and stay relevant in the world of e-commerce, COVID, artificial intelligence. And we wanted to keep it short. I know everyone's super busy, so thank you all so much for your time. If you're interested in learning more about automation, about ERP, or about Recurrency, please reach out to us at sales@recurrency.com. That's recurrency.com, or go to recurrency.com/demo to just book a time. We'd love to talk to you and answer any questions you have.